Hello, Facebook. I am going to deliver a feminist pest control workshop and performance, which explains the underpinnings of feminist pest control. So let's get started here. I'd like to start with a disclaimer, a trigger warning that those who are afraid of pests, there will be pictures that are very disturbing. My consideration for pests began in the fall of 2015 when I had 3 intersecting challenges. First and foremost, I moved into a house that was full of them being pests. With a history of panic at the sight of animals out of place, I was panicked. At the same time, I worked on a project with my advisor, Alan Braddock, called Mapping Virginia CAFOs, Visualizing Factory Farming, which looked at the environmental impact of industrial animal agriculture. I had been recently incorrectly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and even though I had been a long-time vegetarian, my doctor had me on a strictly meat diet. I have since switched back. So basically, I was eating meat, studying why meat making was so bad, and living in a house full of animals, including this cutie pie named Winslow. Even though I was panicked at the sight of American cockroaches, I couldn't kill them. And this is can't really see too well the slides on the video, but this is a photograph of my former roommate, Jessica.
I just see the cockroach.
You see it?
Yeah, you can see the video.
1, they were too fast, and 2, they were too large.
They crunch when you step on them.
About 3 inches, not including antenna. They seemed to have real consciousness, real emotions, and a realness that I could not just end with my own 2 hands. I would instead place a glass over them and wait for my then girlfriend, now wife, she's over here, to come over and take them to the woods. She really did them. This conundrum plagued me and fed into a master's thesis about architecture, capitalism, and animals, which among other things looked at how buildings, especially vacant ones, encompass matrices of human, non-human animal, object, information, natural resources and materials, and history. This notion, developed out of post-humanist theory by scholars such as Donna Haraway, Karen Barad, and Carrie Wolf, led me to realize that even animal studies scholars, when speaking about animals, generally do not mean pest animals. Pest animals are the most disposable of animals and killed by humans with the most rapidity of any other genre of animals, even meat animals in factory farms. Thus, feminist pest control was birthed. It comes with every contradiction you can imagine, including the fact that I hired Orkin to kill the animals in my house that I cannot kill myself with my own 2 hands, and that I do not have to see die because they do so out of sight and out of mind. And I call my guy the cockroach angel. He's a former Navy man who used to build nuclear submarines. No big deal. I don't want to live with them either, and yet I want to give them moral consideration and to bring them into common vernacular with other, more charismatic animals that we talk about, look at videos of, and visit at zoos. Pests are challenging figures because infestations highlight various institutional oppressions that already exist. While anyone could potentially have an infestation at their house, the poor who live in urban and swampy environments are most at risk. Feminist pest control does not aim to tell these humans that they have to live with the rats in their home because all animals live in this matrix and we have to promote harmony. Instead, feminist pest control looks for answers to these challenges and others. How can we give moral, ethical consideration to the pest without reifying intersectional oppressions that potentiate infestation? How can we eliminate negative emotions attached to pest animals? And how can we dissociate pest animals from filth? So I developed a sort of manifesto, which I call the Fem Manifesto, which emphasizes how feminist pest control conceives of the figure of the pest. Number 1, pests are any human or non-human animals considered out of place or at the margins of normativity and cuteness. Humans who live with pest animals share the identity of the pest animals. Humans and pest animals have co-evolved since the beginning of humankind. pests are unevenly distributed across race, class, gender, ability, and sexuality lines. Changing our relationships to pests physically and discursively can aid in healing oppressions shared by human and non-human pests. The standpoints of pests must be considered when decisions are made about the control of pests. Pest animals find humans to be more destructive than the other way around. Not all pest animals need to be controlled or killed. Pests are made up of matter. All matter, organic and inorganic, exists within a matrix of other matter. Pests are things. Pests are intelligent. Pests are not to be feared. Pests are also struggling to survive in the globalized capital economy against industries created purely for their demise. Pests deserve joy. Pests are an untapped resource for holistic health. Pests are not for medical experimentation to serve humans, and art about and or co-created with pests deconstructs animal hierarchies. So that's the Fem Manifesto. And sort of to illuminate, because we're at a women's conference, I thought I would talk a little bit more where the feminist comes from in feminist pest control and how that intersects with pest. So, in the United States and in other places too, women still do the majority of the housework. Therefore, women perform most of the DIY pest control in the home, even though in the professional field, men are associated with pest control. Feminist pest control acknowledges women for performing this free labor, as well as the labor of women who work in professional pest control. Feminist pest control also recognizes non-normative partnerships and living situations where the traditional white middle-class heterosexual power structures, real or imagined, are non-existent, and therefore, more than one woman performs pest control, no woman performs pest control, or no one performs pest control. Even though women and other feminine genders are imagined as those who experience the majority of phobias, fears, and other negative emotions, think back to hysteria, in relation to human-pest interactions, all humans have different reactions to seeing and living with pests. Women and other feminine genders are not weak for expressing these emotions. Men and other masculine genders are not emasculated for expressing these emotions. Pest infestations highlight intersecting identities and oppressions pertaining to state-sanctioned and institutionally based racism, sexism, ableism, heterosexism, nationalism, and classism due to historical associations between filth and non-normative humans. For example, a poor single mother of color may not have the means to live somewhere that has pest prevention measures in place, nor could she afford to pay for individualized, integrated pest management and treatment. Feminist pest control aims to dissociate the presence of pest animals with filth and dirt, and in so doing, remove negative emotions such as shame from human-pest cohabitation. An aspiration of feminist pest control is to provide grants to people who cannot afford pest control. Feminist pest control also desires to add species and speciesism to the list of intersections that people generally associate with intersectional feminism. In addition to sex and gender, race, class, sexual orientation, ability, immigration status, and others, an animal's species is a means by which humans develop prejudice. Stemming from taxonomic systems deriving from the Great Chain of Being and Carl Linnaeus, humans have seen themselves at the top of all species hierarchies. Humans, too, have long used animality rhetoric to dehumanize humans, such as Nazis calling Jews cockroaches in the World War II era. These practices both keep the human group at the bottom and the cockroaches even lower. Instead, feminist pest control recognizes the aliveness, agency, and value of all living things and inanimate objects, following in line with scholars of vital materialism, such as Jane Bennett, whose recent book, Vibrant Matter, A Political Ecology of Things, recognizes the power inherent in all things to shift political economies and ideologies, and Mel Y. Chen, who wrote Animacies, Biopolitics, Racial Mattering, and Queer Affect, which considers how matter that is considered insensate, immobile, deathly, or otherwise wrong, animates cultural life in important ways. Feminist pest control also acknowledges that female pests are most often prejudiced against because they produce offspring, thus proliferating infestation. Feminist pest control advocates for female pests because, to some, they should be the most feared and killed. Feminist pest control uses feminist tactics and practices, such as consciousness-raising groups and holistic health practices, to help reduce stigmas associated with pest infestation and to control and not control pests. Lastly, feminist pest control aims to tear down patriarchal capitalist systems that produce infrastructures that proliferate pest infestations. Processes such as habitat fragmentation and deforestation through real estate development eliminate the delicate balance of ecosystems, leading to species imbalance, such as more deer, which are a pest to some, and food to others. Additionally, city systems such as sewers and waste management create new ecosystems that provide ideal conditions for pest reproduction. Human habitations in general also allow pest animals to get out of harsh weather conditions that will usually control populations naturally. Therefore, feminist pest control looks for better solutions to collaborate with Feminist pest control looks for better solutions to collaborative living with other species, environments, and objects. So today as a group, we will do 2 different activities. One is a role-playing exercise where we will take turns wearing this cockroach costume that I have, and the one person will be the cockroach and the other person will be the human, and the human will say everything they want to say to the cockroach as a sort of therapy. So if you've had cockroaches in your life and it made you really mad, you can actually scream at the cockroach. And then the person who is wearing the cockroach costume will act as the cockroach. So they will describe the reason for their infesting behavior, such as, "I'm just so hungry." The second exercise that we will do is a sort of art therapy exercise, where we will use different arts and craft supplies to create pest mind maps. So we'll look back at our lives with the understanding that every human at some point has been traumatized by pest experience, and we will draw maps of what that experience was like, and it can look like a geographical map or like a thought bubble map or however you want, using markers, crayons, stickers. And another important aspect of that is that you will choose a rodent from that pile and you will hold it while you are performing this activity to help you, get in touch with your inner pest experience. These activities are sort of an extension of former projects that I have worked on. Number one is, in addition to being a feminist pest control agent, I am also a performance artist, and a lot of my projects recently engage with this kind of pest rhetoric and discourse. So number one, in the top corner here, we see a project called Cockroachativity, which looked at, it was part of a night of anti-Trump art in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I held up Trump as a cockroach and as a pest, and sort of spoke about how to infiltrate the system through music and dancing. And the below work is called Cockroaches and Cheese Puffs, and there was sort of a poem that went along with it. And the idea was that my body got way too close to the audience to make them uncomfortable, to think about how one of the most disturbing things about human-pest relationships is proximity. Some of the other projects that Feminist Pest Control has engaged in is do-it-yourself pest control, such as here. This is a shot from a YouTube video where I'm teaching the audience how to make a cockroach trap. Here I am teaching the audience to make cockroach granola bars with those cockroaches that you have trapped. essentially, if you have cockroaches or other animals in your home, you have free meat. And so that's a way to think about it that's different from the common perception of what to do with cockroaches. Another project I created was a cockroach disco. And this, basically I researched what humans know about how cockroaches feel, think, all the different senses, and I tried to make a space that would actually provide them enjoyment. Mostly when we see them, we just kill them, we scream, we act very negatively towards them. So I wanted to provide them an environment that they would really like. So for example, it's dark, it's got two-way mirror glass so you can see in, but they can't see out. I guess that's coercive in some ways, but essentially, the idea behind that was if you can see a cockroach and really engage with it, then you'll be less afraid. There's also these spots here. They have places to hide. They're called stigmatropic, which means that they really like to feel sandwiched on both sides. And lastly, we also have done feminist pest control group therapy sessions where we get together and it's sort of like a feminist consciousness raising group where we talk about our experiences and share different ways that pests have traumatized us. I will close now the Facebook Live event, and we will get to workshopping. Have a wonderful day, guys.